Don't be afraid to try. You can always take it back. If people around them are telling them no, but the need to do it is greater, don't be afraid to try. You're allowed to change your mind, or you're allowed to find new paths. You're allowed to try, and you're allowed to continue trying, whether or not you fail.
Getting into theater, like it's something that made you feel alive.
I always thought that theater wasn't something I could pursue because I was made to believe na hindi siya practical. Like any creative or freelancer, there's always that push and pull with theater because nga, hindi siya sustainable alone.
What was the moment when you told yourself, I can go all in on this?
There was a part of me that just really wanted to do it. After my job, I went straight into auditions. I auditioned, I got it. Parang the universe conspired to kind of let it all happen.
Gab, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
I am super excited. I have so many questions. Medyo nagchichikahan na tayo kanina.
Oo.
But something that I have just noticed right from the get-go is you just have this like positive and just good vibes.
Stop!
And it's just really, I'm really excited to do this podcast episode because I have a lot of questions
Yay!
about you and of course the work that you do as well. But thank you so much for coming
No,
here.
thanks for having me. Really. I mean, it's always exciting for me to, introduce in a way the world that we theater people kind of live in. Kasi medyo sometimes we feel like we're in a bubble because of the industry and because of, I guess, the nature of the work. So when we get to go out of it and really meet new people and really get to kind of get them to know about it as well, it's always so helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I was gonna say us, but yeah, us, me. Yeah.
But I'm very, very happy to have you as my first kind of like theater actress.
It's an honor.
Here on the show. But one thing that I'm just really curious, like kind of some sort of like an icebreaker question.
Okay.
I'm new to the theater world. But last year pa lang ako nakapanood ng my first ever.
What was your first ever?
Borogodoy.
Okay.
Yeah, Borogodoy.
Okay.
No, I actually watched some. Yung isa na panood ko. Diyos, naalala mo ba yun? First one.
Last year.
Oh no, Snow White. Snow White with
okay.
Neo. So, Neo's,
Rivera, right.
Neo Rivera
Okay.
is my friend. So, in-invite niya ako. But anyway,
Okay.
first
so
time.
what was your first? That's
and
Borogodoy.
Borogodoy. And then, I received an email that you guys are doing something. But before we dive into that,
Okay.
I'm curious, like, what's the state of the theater industry
Now.
here in
Oh wow. How long?
Yeah.
How much time do we have? No.
And what's one thing that people don't know about this
Theater?
industry?
Well, for one, it's been around for a long, long, long time. And siguro the state, if we're talking about the state of Philippine theater now, it's crazy because years ago, it wasn't as, how do you call it? Parang ngayon, we see there's a trend na medyo naging uso siya, if that makes sense. Yung all of a sudden, there are just so many people who want to know about it. There are just so many people who want to try it. And there's so many people who want to come see shows. And I think a big factor, like I don't want to say that it was because of the pandemic, but there was something that happened during the pandemic that made people kind of crave for a live experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how everybody was just stuck in their houses streaming. There were people live streaming. There were people watching on all these platforms. But then the theater people, we were deemed as non-essential. And then all of a sudden, we call it like revenge theater. Now, when all of a sudden people live shows were allowed, all of a sudden, ang dami ng bagong audience, pero also ang dami ng bagong theater companies. So there were a lot of theater companies that emerged, and if before there were only the big players like PETA Theater Center, there was Repertory Philippines, there was the more known ones. Though you mentioned you saw Borogodoy, that's by Newport World Resorts. But during the pandemic, 2020, they streamed ang Huling El Bimbo online.
Yeah.
That was by Newport World Resorts also. And then all of a sudden, people kind of started wanting to know more about theater in a way. So I think that encouraged theater makers to also kind of start their own thing. So now it's not just the big players, but there are also the smaller venues. Like we did a show called we did a Shakespeare play na Othello, but it was only 100-seater. Alam mo yon, yung parang people think na pag theater, ay automatic, ang laki ng venue, that's like 1,000
Yeah, sa
people.
Borogodoy, ang laki.
Ang laki
Parang
nun,
grabe.
1.7, I think, 1.7-seater
Oh,
yun, di
ay,
ba?
ganito pala pag
No,
theater.
but that's the thing, it's not like that. So that's
Uh-huh.
one thing that people should know also. There is theater for all kinds of people, and there is, I guess, a story for all kinds of audiences.
Yeah.
Because if you, as a first-time theater goer, you go into a theater na 1.7 yung seats, hindi mo alam na may theater na 50 lang ang seats.
Yes.
And may theater na 400 lang ang seats. So parang, for those that are intimidated, I guess, by theater as a concept, or like as when you watch shows and stuff, ang dami, from 50 seats to 1,700 seats, there is a show for you. And you just kind of have to be willing to, take a chance or to kind of go there.
Yeah. Does it make a difference? Like, for example, as an actress,
Yeah.
performing in, let's say,
Big
50 and then big theater.
For me, it does not. But also, mas nakakakaba yung hyper-intimate
Oh, really?
venues. For me because when we did ang Huling El Bimbo, that was in Newport World Resorts. And then we did Othello na 100 seats lang. And
Yeah.
this was in like a studio in the middle of Poblacion. Alam mo yun? And parang people sometimes when they watch a theater show, they always feel na, oh my gosh, parang ang social naman. Di ba? Yung parang ang shala, like you have to dress up. Mula sa Buwan was in Samsung Performing Arts Theater, which is 1.5-seater. And parang, it was wonderful because you could see like kids or like teenagers all the way to like 30s, 40s, really dressing up for it.
Yeah.
And then sa gitna ng Poblacion, may 100-seater na ganyang kalapit. As in yung tao, literally, you could feel yung mga law.
Parang mosh pit pa.
Medyo ganun yung peg. Because this was, imagine Shakespeare. And like people, when they hear Shakespeare, automatic, oh no, that's not for me. I won't understand the thing. But then you get this hyper-intimate staging when kung stretch mo lang yung arms mo, mararamdaman mo na yung actor. Diba? Iba rin yung experience nun. So there's just so many different kinds of shows out there.
Yeah.
And for an actor, it really depends what kind of show or production you want to do, I guess. But for a lot of theater actors, as long as they get to step on stage and tell a story, that's enough. And we even have readings. And when they say readings, it's like their actors are in front of you, sitting down with a script in their hand, but they tell the story anyway. So iba-ibang klase, and that's something na not everybody knows. Kahit yung price range nag-iiba din yun depending on the show.
Yeah, kasi parang yun nga talaga I think nabanggit mo rin siya kanina na one of the barriers would say na parang pag manonood ka ng theater, mahal yan. Or like pang mga bougie.
No, diba? There is that
stigma
that stigma, I guess, na for theater, yun, automatic ganun siya. But now I feel like it's reached so many people, and because of the internet also, people kind of realize na, oh, there's so many different kinds of stories out there. Lalo na dito sa Manila, all of a sudden, the theater scene is booming, and there are just so many. And like recently, last year, they did One More Chance, which was an adaptation of the movie. We did Bar Boys, a new musical, which was also from a movie. Alam mo yun? So parang, I would say nagka-crossover na lahat ng bagay. So parang wala talagang limits when it comes to theater. So, yun, exciting. It's really exciting.
It is really exciting. I mean, parang in for example, the podcast industry as well, like it's relatively kind of new.
Yes, for
Although,
sure.
matagal na naman siya, pero now it's kind of like picking up. So parang it's really exciting to see like more and more people go into it. Marami ka bang for like the people who are seeing theater for the first time, and then they keep on coming back, like ano yung pinaka-reason nila why they keep on coming back?
I think in a way some would say that theater is an escape. I mean, from their real life, let's say from their daily lives. Others would say pahinga yung theater for them because they get to kind of watch a different story or watch a story in front of them happening live, but the energy is shared. Alam mo yun, yung iba yung pakiramdam ng watching, let's say, a movie
Netflix,
or watching, I mean, it's a different art form, but I guess the magic of live theater is it's always a shared experience. So I would think there are audience members who come into the theater wanting to feel less alone. And they will leave the theater feeling like they shared a unique experience with other people. And you will never be able to recreate that same experience. Because it's a live shared experience. Parang ganon. And I think yun yung magic
kind
ng
of like
theater.
This parang similar sa concert, di ba?
Yes, no, exactly.
Parang
Ganun siya, live experience siya eh. And parang yung difference naman ng concert ay you can sing your lungs out and sa theater naman, it's like you're watching a story. And 'di ba? Parang
Sorry,
iba.
Naalala ko lang kasi yung friend ko, niniyaya niya ako. Sabi niya sa akin, "Huwag kang kakanta dun."
Oo,
Huwag
ang
kang
dami.
sasabay.
Interesting din kasi yung depende
So,
rin sa
totoo ba
show.
yun? Yeah.
Totoo yun. Actually, marami, I mean, that's a whole other topic, pero parang syempre, there's such a thing also as theater etiquette. I mean, of course, in a movie, when you watch a movie, may din doon, di ba? May mga tao na make sure your phone is silent pag nanonood ka ng sine kasi nga hindi lang naman ikaw yung nandun. And in theater, it's kind of the same thing. Pero, yun, parang ang daming experiences din na parang, uy, silence yung phone nyo. Kasi nga, again, it's a shared experience. So there's also, I don't know, there's magic in like there's so much empathy involved in alam mo yun, in theater and wala, parang it's just being with other people, 'di ba? Parang ang dami mo lang pagdadaanan individually but also together. So
actually, parang I remember my first time watching a play. Parang sa dami ng characters, hinahanap ko sino ako dyan.
Exactly. Or it's parang depending on what you're watching, there's so many reasons why you choose to watch something. It could be because, 1, makaka-relate ka. 2, escape. 3, you just want to, like, entertainment. I mean, you want to feel happy or di ba? Parang ganon. Pero there's also, some would say, like, to feel something, to feel alive. Others describe theater that way. Now, when they watch theater and watching actors come to life right before them, it makes them feel alive. Parang ganon.
Curious ako, about your personal experience getting into theater. Was that also your reason? Like, it's something that made you feel alive?
The interesting thing there is, parang I feel like I kind of just, I grew up knowing theater. I mean, like, I was exposed to theater, to music at a very young age. But I always thought that theater wasn't something I could pursue. Because I was made to believe na hindi siya practical. Like any creative or freelancer or whatever. Diba? It's complicated. Na joke lang. No, I always say, there's always that push and pull with theater. Because as somebody who grew up with it and as somebody who really wanted to do it, I was in a corporate job before I quit my job to do theater full-time. And parang ang haba lang ng journey bago ako nakarating, I guess, here, na I really made that decision to fight for it, if that makes sense. To fight for this life, na creative life, full-time theater actor. Of course, diskarte yan, di ba? Lalo na sa Manila. I mean, di ba, there are so many ways, I guess, that we could live a quote-unquote financially stable life. Mahirap siya, pero ilalaban mo yun di ba? Because nga of the life, I guess, you want to live. So, yun, it took a while before really kind of, I mean, until now, you'll never feel completely settled because you'll always, it's hard to explain. Pero ganon yung parang when you're, like I mentioned earlier, when you're a theater actor, you're also so many other things. Because nga, you can't just do theater alone. Kumbaga, currently here in Manila, in the Philippines, hindi siya sustainable alone. But you will find ways so that you'll be able to do it still. Be it, let's say, as an actor, as a theater actor, not just a theater actor, you're a content creator, you do film, you do TV, you do commercials, alam mo yun, it's all that. I'm also a producer. I'm also in
But
marketing.
I think it also speaks so much about like the love for theater.
Yes.
Na parang,
Yeah.
I'll do everything
Yes.
just so that I can
You
also
can do
do
that.
this.
Yes. And it's like they used to say, diba, for the love. Like a lot of, I guess, freelancers say that because nga it's a passion thing. But right now, it can't just be for the love, diba? Parang you also have to be able to, I guess, assert yourself as a creative or as a freelancer na parang it can't just be that.
Yeah.
Because but then now, because I guess of how the industry has grown
Yeah.
and like the landscape, I guess, of Philippine theater, parang it feels like people are fighting for that sustainability naman. So that's why from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, the industry has come a long way
Yeah.
in terms of how sustainable it could be.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
oo.
I think ngayon, it's really in an interesting point wherein parang the breakthrough is just right there, you know? I think parang magiging exponential growth na rin siya
Yes, yeah.
in terms of
Hopefully,
reaching.
hopefully
Yeah.
masustain. Yun yung yun yung discussions among like theater practitioners because nga of the whole revenge theater thought. Everybody's like, wow, ang dami ng companies, ang dami na nag-hire. But now, oh my God, where are the actors? May rin siya, may gap din in terms of experienced actors because of the pandemic. Alam mo yun, ang dami. So parang kailangan maghabulan. Kung dati sobrang daming actors, tapos kulang yung companies. Ngayon, dumadami yung nag-hire na actors, tapos kulang yung experienced actors. So there's just so much... There's just so much involved. I could
so
go on
many
and on.
moving
Yeah,
pieces.
moving parts. No,
Yeah.
definitely. Oo.
With you, I mean, for you, parang 10 years mo na itong ginagawa. By the way, congratulations
Thank
for
you.
1 decade
Thank
of
you.
doing this. And maybe there are like some people who are maybe who want to start acting, get into theater.
Yeah.
Maybe there are people who've done this already,
Yes.
pero medyo nawala na ng fire.
Yeah.
Can you share your experience
Okay.
of like what was the moment when you told yourself like, okay, I can go all in on this?
Okay.
Was it because of the pandemic na
No,
mula?
no, it was not.
Okay. Yeah.
Long before the pandemic, actually. So, I would say I officially started this career 2014. But it also, like my love for theater started way before that. But in 2014, I had just maybe a year out of college na ako nun. I graduated na. Tapos I was a broker. And there are these Facebook groups at the time na parang nakalagay auditions. And alam mo yung nagsascroll lang ako. But that time I really missed performing.
Okay.
And I would do kiddie parties, like I'd perform as like a Disney princess or in kiddie parties at the time. So the weekdays was for my corporate job, and then the weekend was for the kiddie parties, the performing. I was scrolling, and then I saw auditions for a musical that was my favorite musical. Kumbaga, in my head, it was a non-negotiable musical. I saw there were auditions for it. And that's what made me think, can I? Yung may ganon. Parang nagka-spark na, because nga at the time, I didn't think I could pursue theater. And it kind of snowballed from there. Like from that one decision to try to audition, thinking na, oh, okay, I'll do my 9 to 5 and do a show.
Yeah.
And then weeks later, I auditioned, I got it. Then weeks later, I was messaged if I was performing. At the time, I was like, I auditioned for something. Oh, kasi we're looking for someone. Alam mo yung parang the universe just conspired to kind of let it all happen. Yeah. And then I found myself 2 months already rehearsing for a production. And then it was when I was really prioritizing the musical or being a theater actor more than my corporate job. And then I realized in that time na I was already booked for 6 months.
Wow.
Na alam mo yung parang all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like, kasi somebody told me this wasn't possible. Alam mo yun? Yung somebody told me na if I decide to go into theater, it's gonna take forever, or I'll have a lot of like months na wala akong ginagawa.
Yeah.
But at that time, it's like everything just fell into place. And all of a sudden, I had 3 productions lined up.
Wow.
So I feel like it was a timing thing na at that time, the whole concept of jukebox musicals kind of came into the picture na there was a rack of AGs na AG songs. And kumbaga dumadami lang yung musicals at that time. So it was a timing thing. And then all of a sudden, I just kept going one production after the other. And then, yun na, I realized, okay, ginagawa, okay, ginagawa ko na pala siya. Okay, I think I should quit my job. Because lunch break ko, tulog lang ako because nga, I was busy at night rehearsing for a show. So I just found myself there in that space. And of course, I told my mom. My mom was the one who stopped me before. Sorry, mom. Linalaglag kita. Char. No, but my mom was, because my mom used to perform. So she knows how difficult it is. Yung parang, she was a singer also. And she was the one who told me, don't pursue it because it's not practical. It's not sustainable. When I told her I was quitting my job to do theater, umiyak siya. She was like, "Are you sure?" Like she was just so afraid.
Did she know na? Like you were fully booked or parang inuna mo yung balita na?
Inuna ko yung balita na I was quitting my job. But even if I was fully booked, how long will you be fully booked, diba? There's still that uncertainty and there will always be that question of what's the next show or what's the next project that you'll book. But at that given moment, I was just so ready to just jump. And I'm like, if it doesn't work out, I can just find a job. I mean, alam mo yun, yung parang if that doesn't work out, I'll just find another corporate job. And at least I can say, sinubukan ko and I tried. And then lo and behold, 10 years later, we're still here. Even after the pandemic. Because the pandemic was another story altogether. I mean, yun talaga, theater, like, wala, diba? I mean, we all know what happened in pandemic. All of us kind of like we were wala. So, yun, ibang kwento yun.
I think I'm now curious, medyo hindi mo siya natuloy, yung sa story mo about your mom.
Yeah.
Because maybe for a lot of people, growing up is, they will come like decisions or choices in their lives na people will disagree.
Yes.
And
for sure.
People will get disappointed. And pinakamasakit pa doon yung taong closest to you.
Yeah.
Like people who you really look up to.
Yeah.
Where did you find, or parang, how did you muster the courage to do that?
To tell her.
And what was going through your mind?
Okay, so ever since my mom, it was a push and pull thing with her because she was the one who introduced me to musical theater. So really, kasalanan niya to. No, but really, no, she was the one who introduced me. She enrolled me in a children's theater workshop at 7 years old. And ako yung na-addict. 7 years old hanggang 12 years old, every summer, Mom, I want to enroll. When I turned 12, she was like, when I turned 13, tama na, sabi niya, nagmamahal na yung summer theater workshops, parang break na. And then, siya din yung nagsabi, when I was 15, there are auditions for High School Musical. Alam niyo pa yung High School Musical. There are auditions for High School Musical. Do you want to audition? And I'm like, are you offering? I mean, it was my first professional production. I was 15 years old. And then of course, my grades suffered. So of course, sinabi na naman niya, you can't do it anymore. And I'm like, okay, I'll follow. So I found myself, yung push and pull nun, na parang, I didn't want to disappoint my parents, but at the same time, I really wanted to do it. And then in my head, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll graduate. I mean, for sure, what my parents want is for me to graduate and get a job. So I'll do that. I'll do that for them. I will. But there was always that hunger for theater for me, personally. And in my head, pa nga, I was like, okay, what would be practical, at least like for my parents, na they would see, okay, she's earning enough. She'll be able to sustain her life, ganyan. What if I auditioned for Hong Kong Disneyland. Because the people, like when you go to Disneyland and go there as a performer, you'll earn sweldo talaga. So parang for me, okay, what if I audition?
Yeah.
So I did. Fresh out of college, I auditioned. I didn't get it. So I was like, okay, so that's out. What else can I do? Wala. I'll get a job. So when I finally, like after years of avoiding theater, and I finally told my mom, I have to try. Like you just have, parang I have to try ganyan. And then I proved her wrong. And now she's literally my parents are my number one fans.
One and two.
No, but literally my parents are my number one supporters when it comes to theater.
Yeah.
Like my mom, sometimes she watches shows, she doesn't even tell me kasi nahihiya na siya. Kasi sobrang addict niya manood. Alam mo yung minsan and then she was like, I actually watched last weekend. And I'm like, you didn't tell me. Kasi third time ko na manood. Yung ganon siya. And then she'll be like, I watched, okay, don't tell your dad. Because if she tells my dad, she'll have to bring him. Gastos, yung mga ganyan. But, so, for me, it all worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I never told them nga na one of my first auditions was during the birthday of my lola. And because nga I was in that, there was a part of me that just really wanted to do it. After my job, I went straight into auditions and I didn't tell them where I was. Alam mo yung medyo nagpanic pa sila na kung nasan ako kasi nga dapat galing trabaho and all. I auditioned. Parang wala. There was just that need for me to kind of just go for it.
Yeah.
And then say sorry after. Yung alam mo yun.
Mas sabi nga nila, mas madali mag-sorry kaysa
I'm sorry. I'm not encouraging that. I mean, I'm sure now it's different. I mean, because nga times are different also. Na there are just so many more opportunities now, I would say.
And I think it's also, parang it's safe to say that the landscape for what it means to find a job it's different now.
It's so different.
Like before, it was all about stability,
yes.
Right? But now, if you're not happy with what you're doing, like, what's the point? So a lot of like, especially for Gen Zs out there, parang they take that into consideration. Hindi na lang to basta practical eh.
Yeah.
It's
and also, I think, even, there's so many job options, 'di ba? Yung parang even from home na yung options mo in terms of like how to earn money. I guess there are so many ways. Nasa sayo na. Oo.
What's your advice for people who are getting into, let's say, adulting and you say that they want to really pursue something, but people around them are telling them no.
For me, if people around them are telling them no, but the need to do it is greater, don't be afraid to try. Because you can always take it back. You're allowed to change your mind, or you're allowed to find new paths. It's not like I'm deciding to do this and that's it, right? Yung parang pipilitin ko lang hanggang mangyari. You're allowed to try, and you're allowed to continue trying whether or not you fail. And for me kasi, it's scary to kind of venture into something new. But even before, it was always how I was, na I'll do it even if I was afraid. And I'll just try. Because if you don't try, diba? Wouldn't you rather try and then fail rather than wag na lang and then parang, so yeah, there will always be naman people who will say na wag na, because, and it's coming from a place of love, diba? It's sometimes it comes from a place of just be safe, like take the safe route, but try. No, that's all I can, diba? Parang for me, you just have sense. To, because
if it's parang if paulit-ulit siyang lumalabas sa isip mo.
I mean, lalo na there's that need or there's that question na parang, what if you don't try it? Life will just pass you by, and then you look back and you're like, ay, sana pala sinubukan ko to, no? And it's never too, like for me, lalo na let's say in the creative world, it's never too late.
Yeah.
Because there are people who, I don't even think there is such a thing as peaking, diba? Parang there are people who say they peak at 20, 30, 40, pero parang ako, I mean, just keep trying and, diba, going for those experiences, whether or not you fail at them or whether or not you'll be bad at it. But the important thing is for you to take that step.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank
gusto ko yung, I mean, try even if you fail.
Yeah.
Because eventually it will make sense.
It will. And for me kasi, even if you fail, there's always something to learn from that. And it will just kind of, I mean, di ba nga they say, rejection is actually redirection.
Yeah.
Di ba?
Yeah.
Parang it really is because even, I mean, as an actor, we get rejected all the time. And it's kind of part of our lives.
Yeah.
But I always think na, okay, if this thing isn't for me, it just means there's something else that is meant for me. And it goes for anyone, not just actors, diba? Parang for whatever decision you have in life or whatever bump there is in the road, there's always a reason.
Parang
I believe that.
Yun, parang hindi ka talaga nag-fail or hindi ka talaga nalalagay sa posisyon na talo ka. Like, it's always...
Exactly. Oo.
I think I posted something then a week ago na parang, what if it's not a rejection, what it's a protection?
Yes, exactly.
And trying to protect you from
exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy. But thanks so much. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
There's so many things. I'm so loving this conversation. But ang dami pa
Ang dami
natin pwedeng
talaga,
pag-usapan.
promise. Sabi ko 3 hours tong podcast na to.
Intro question ko pa lang yun. So nagsisimula pa lang
Oh my
tayo.
gosh.
But I guess there's just so many things that people need to learn about life. But for some, it's lessons that they need to experience. For some, it's lessons that they need to hear from other people. But there's just so many lessons to learn.
Oh, for sure.
In this adulting life, which is something that I guess you're also. I'm also excited to ask. Because adulting and the lessons that come with it parang are the topics that is heavily involved in your newest project called We Aren't Kids Anymore. Tama ba?
Yes, very correct.
Can you share a little bit about what that is?
Okay, so currently I'm in Barefoot Theater Collaborative's production of We Aren't Kids Anymore, and it's a musical about, they say it's a coming of age musical for adults. You know how the usual themes in a story or in a show or a movie is coming of age when from a teen you become an adult. But what isn't usual is when an adult becomes an adult. There are so many things an adult goes through that we don't discuss anymore because we're busy being an adult. And that's what makes We Aren't Kids Anymore so exciting, because all of a sudden we're touching on themes that adults don't get to discuss with a regular, diba? Parang these are themes na you don't usually see in a movie or you don't usually see in a coming of age show or story. And We Aren't Kids Anymore, we're 5 in the cast, and it takes you through the life of an artist. And I don't know, it just hits harder than any other show I've ever done. Also, because technically it's a new show that it's an album that came out in 2020, and then by Drew Gasparini, who is an artist based in New York. And so parang there's just so many topics tackled, and it hits harder than your regular show, or actually no story is regular, but it just hindi usual yung theme niya. Yeah.
For you, bakit siya it hits home for you?
Okay, so in our first day of rehearsals a few weeks ago, we read through the entire script. I mean, we read through the songs, and we didn't expect the day to have tears. Alam mo yung parang, because when you listen to the music or like surface level, it's a fun show because it talks about an artist talking about his life. Of course, yung struggles ng artist or the importance of telling a story. He talks about his family. He talks, diba? But then us reading it, there are just so many things about the material that is just so personal that even our director, he says, walang acting to ah. You don't have to. Technically, with the show that it is, you don't have to act because you just have to tap from personal experiences. And it's like all of us, because we're so used to telling a story na hindi kami. Alam mo yun? Like, you know how, personally, as an actor, it's easier for me to do a musical as a character, like taking on a role, than it is for me to, let's say, host an event. Because when I'm hosting an event, I'm myself. Or, diba, yung parang public speaking is so different from acting. Then all of a sudden, you tell me, you cast me in a musical and I'm not supposed to act? I'm supposed to be myself?
You gotta be yourself.
I gotta be me? Like, I'll be that exposed, that vulnerable? So, every day is a learning experience for us because it actually feels like every day nasa therapy kami. Parang ganun yung pakiramdam. Yung parang there's a lot of unpacking because again, we're all adults for the first time and we're all going through life for the first time. So there's no manual. And that's exactly what the show is.
Now that you mentioned it, parang I think it's the first time that someone shed light on it as well. Parang, hey guys, adulting, when you hit adult, hindi yung papunta ka pa lang sa adult. No, yung adult ka na.
Adult
and then,
ka na. Then what? Diba? Yung parang,
parang you're just expected to
know what to do.
You're an adult, like, figure it out.
Yes, exactly.
But it's actually much harder here.
Exactly. But diba, parang when you talk about it, you're questioning yourself agad na parang, wait, ako lang ba? Yung, am I the only one who doesn't know what I'm supposed to be doing? Diba? And then, realizing that we're 5 adults in the cast and we talk about each song, like what the material goes through. And it's like, wait, ako to eh. Diba? Yung parang, what's happening right now? Like, so there's just so much, parang, mawawala ka talaga sa comfort zone mo because there's no hiding, I guess. When it comes to We Aren't Kids Anymore, the musical, for us as actors, there's no hiding because we're really tapping into real personal experiences. And there's just something so raw about it. And even like music rehearsals, we had a week of music rehearsals of singing the songs. And I was like, what is happening to me? Am I malfunctioning? Like, why am I crying all day, every day right now? Like, it's not like something, because in previous shows, people always tell me, I hope you get a happy role next time. Because in previous shows, it's always either namatayan ako yung namatay. Alam mo yun, yung parang it's just heavy
tragic,
drama. Yeah, it's always so tragic. Like but this time, it's not tragic. You're going through daily life, but it's so heavy because we're in a way forced to be vulnerable with the topics that we're tackling.
Yeah.
Kasi nga, hindi tayo sanay as an adult talking about adult things.
Yeah.
Alam mo yun?
And I guess, ang isa sa mga napansin ko rin patterns, I mean, I'm really excited to see, now I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
Yeah.
But something lang, like, I'm seeing a pattern then when people become an adult.
Yeah.
And then they get to, like, be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Either, sabi nung inisip ng iba na parang, oh, you're childish.
Yes.
Ganyan. But, yun nga, medyo na-force kasi talaga yung mga tao.
Yeah, wala kang choice eh. Growing up is inevitable, di ba?
Tapos parang pinapush ka na lang, 25 ka na,
Yeah.
or 30 ka na, kailangan adult ka na. But one thing that I have learned, especially with I've talked to so many people, coached so many people as well. Like, everyone's just dealing with their own stuff.
Exactly.
And everyone's just healing their own inner child.
Exactly. Parang, it kind of feels like what I think I see from We Aren't Kids Anymore. It kind of, you're forced to empathize with a fellow adult and to see someone who is actually just like you going through life on their own.
Yeah.
It's just so, there's something that makes you feel less lonely because of that. Diba? Parang, yun yung nakikita kong value with what we're doing right now with We Aren't Kids Anymore. It's like if somebody in the audience can leave the theater feeling a little less alone, okay, then that's a good thing because nga we're all adults going through life on their own and it gets so lonely, 'di ba? Parang kala mo ikaw lang yung nakakaranas ng ganyan, pero hindi. There are so many people going through their own stuff. Yeah.
Without spoiling us,
okay,
what's the biggest kind of like adulting lesson that people can expect from the show?
Actually, it's interesting because when people say that na parang no spoilers, whatever I
Masaspoil ka
say,
talaga.
no, whatever I
Okay.
say won't spoil the experience.
Ah.
So, so we aren't kids anymore. If we're gonna put context there, so it's by Drew Gasparini, an artist in New York. We're 5 in the cast who play one person. So I play Drew, Maron Cruz plays Drew, Mike Salomon plays Drew, Gio Gohol plays Drew, and Luigi Quesada plays Drew. But we all are different facets of Drew's life. The same way any other person has so many faces in their lives. It's like we represent different faces or different facets of one person. So it's really you seeing some would say para siyang inside out. 'Di ba? You know how it's like one person and all these voices in her head. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So it's really the unpacking of one person's life. And
Is it parang different seasons of?
yes,
Oh, okay.
in a way, that's how I can describe
Ah.
the show. It's him going through life and 5 of us representing different phases of his life. So that's why siguro it gets so heavy or it gets so personal for
Yeah.
us. Because let's say me as like my character, or at least the songs that I sing, I represent his drive, his career,
Okay.
ambition.
Yeah.
So,
Motivation.
'di ba?
Ganyan.
Motivation, but also me wanting to reach a certain point in your life and not seeming parang hindi ako makarating doon. And all of us as adults, 'di ba? We have dreams and we have things we want to pursue in life. And there are just struggles and wala talagang shortcuts to get there.
Yeah.
So that's just me.
Yeah.
If si Mike represents family. So yung background, yung parang alam mo yon, yung so
Yeah.
it's
So parang different, let's say, different in facets of life. Like I could say, parang health, relationships,
in a
career,
way,
parang
yeah.
ganon.
Para siyang, there's actually one person, si Maron, she would describe herself as the one who heals her inner child. Parang ganon. And again, for any adult, yung healing your inner child becomes so, and it became a thing lately. Lately lang
Yes,
siya na
parang
ano, 'di
open
ba?
siya ngayon na parang-
Lately siya na pinpoint, oh, that's what it is. 'Di ba? Yung parang, like if we're talking on a personal level, ako as an adult with adult money, I buy books because I love reading. When before, I couldn't afford books
Yeah.
on my own, and now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, ito yung bisyo ko. Parang ganon, yung libro. Kasi nga, ganon, may
Yeah,
ganon
parehas
siyang-
tayo ng bisyo. So,
Okay, good. That's nice.
guys, I'm healing my inner child. If you guys
Yes.
alam niyo na every month meron sobrang dami kong hauls ng books, guys.
Eh, di ba?
I'm also healing my inner child.
Yes. Yeah,
But for you, why is it important to, get to that point? Kasi parang yung iba, they're so scared of like getting to that point. No?
Yeah.
They need to heal the
Yeah.
inner child.
Yeah.
They'd rather just kasi parang
Go
ang
through
dali- I
life.
think yung ang interesting sa point mo or sa character mo is these are what's expected of you.
Yes, exactly.
Like you have that drive,
Yeah.
work, focus on
Yes.
career, then fix your relationship, but then the healing the inner child part.
Yeah.
That one is something na sabi mo nga ngayon lang siya nagiging parang cool.
In a way, it's taken for granted kasi, di ba, na parang dati akala mo, hindi mo pwedeng gawin yun.
Why do you think that is?
Right now, I love how siguro it's also social media and how what you see parang influences, di ba? Parang what you see online na parang you see somebody living their best life. And it depends how you frame it na parang some would say damaging siya in a way because you'll compare your own life. But it's also, for me, you could also see it as motivation for you to kind of be able to find small joys and yung celebrate the small wins. And it's important. Why is it important? Because I don't know.
Like, why do you think now it's becoming like a trend? I could say Na parang,
Ayoko
why
nga
do you
siya,
think dati hindi
hindi
siya,
pwede.
or hindi siya nagiging priority? Like, why
Kasi
is,
dati hindi siya pinapag-usapan. And before, there were just so many topics, I guess, na parang, you're just, again, like you mentioned, you're just expected to know what to do. But now, because people, I guess, have been more vocal with their own personal
yeah.
journeys, there are people who are just more motivated to acknowledge their wounds, let's
Mm,
say, or to acknowledge what hurt them. And that's the only way for them to heal. Alam mo
yeah.
yun? 'Di ba? Parang, and I think it's crossing that, yung parang being able to acknowledge
Yeah.
that and to name what, ano yung past, yung,
Yeah.
let's say, childhood trauma or yung past
Yeah.
wounds mo. It's only in the acknowledging of that that you'll be able to move forward from it, I
Yeah.
think.
What
Yeah.
are there other topics aside from like adulting stuff, or let's say healing the inner child,
Yeah.
motivation, drive for their careers? Are
And we
there,
aren't kids
yeah.
anymore. So actually, we Barefoot recently also posted content warnings, which I think important then in theater productions to kind of give content or trigger warnings, lalo na for those coming in and for
Yeah.
those who want to see the show, right? So it also explores discussions about mental health, discussions about suicide, self harm, and I guess, like I mentioned, it's the entire journey of a singular person
Mm,
and what it I guess what it takes for one person who wants to pursue a dream, and how a person can fail or not. I don't want to not even fail, how a person can go down the wrong path, or
yeah.
'di ba, yung
Hit the
parang
rock
depending,
bottom. Yeah.
hit rock bottom literally, depending on the decisions or the choices that they make in life. So,
Like, personal question.
mm-mm.
Aren't you kind of like scared, or is there like a certain parang fear or nervousness
Yeah.
that you feel when you kind of
Dig.
dig or dive deep into these
Yeah.
kinds of topics, because these are like sensitive topics?
Yes. Personally, I think it comes with separating yourself with the material or with these topics. Parang, again, it's not easy to be an actor that, 'di ba? Because an actor will really give everything for their craft and put themselves in the shoes of another
Yeah.
person. It takes a lot of empathy, but it
Yeah.
also takes a lot of technique to be able to do that healthily
Mm-hmm.
and
Para
not,
hindi mo siya ma-absorb,
hindi,
tas,
oo, hindi pwede. There's a lot that goes into acting as a skill and as an art form na hindi, na kailangan siya gawing healthily.
mm,
And it's also dependent on the space. So like currently, we call it actually, this is a safe space, but it's not just like the rehearsal space. It's a safe space, but it's not just a safe space. It's a brave space.
mm,
So we recognize how comfortable we can be with each other, but that also requires trust.
yeah.
Alam mo yun, yung relationship mo with, and then we also have a safe word na if we feel na it's getting too much emotionally or mentally, there's a safe word so that we could take a step back. And alam mo yun, yung parang
Okay.
we kind of have to, or for any space in theater, there are those parameters that have to be set so that you know how to go about it
Yeah.
healthily and
Yeah.
not damage yourself and who you are. 'Di ba? Hindi pwede.
Yeah.
And they're just, again, this is, I'm not an expert on
Yep.
that, but that's what I've learned, at least through the years. And that's why now there's such a thing as an intimacy coordinator, because there's also, like, theater can be very physical,
Oo.
not just with fight scenes, but also with emotional, what do you call this? Intimate scenes. So there's an intimacy coordinator now that we can call in to kind of give us workshops on how to go about it
Okay.
safely.
So like there's safe practices
Oh yeah,
na talaga.
definitely. There has to be.
How about from the audience perspective? Do you kind of like expect na this is our message and hopefully you receive it that way? Was there a time that it was received differently, or the response was like really overwhelming for people. Uh, have you experienced that?
I'm trying to siguro from recent memory, not necessarily overwhelming, but for me, lalo na now, with the times now, it's so important. Like, content warnings are so important because nga, people have to know what they're, I mean, people who need that, they have to be provided that. Alam mo yun? So like recently with Othello, Othello was under cast PH, and again, it was a hyper intimate staging. And Othello, I mean, everybody knows Shakespeare, like what goes in what goes through a Shakespeare play, like Romeo and Juliet, all of that. Everybody dies.
Yeah.
Pero 'di ba, there's just so like from point A to point B, how does it get there, right? So for Othello, it was important for Cast PH to really let people know that not only are there themes na sensitive, but also there were really graphic scenes that could really be triggering for those
Yep.
who weren't aware.
Yeah.
And when I say graphic, I don't know how much I can say, pero like if you've read Othello, Desdemona, my character, she dies by suffocation. Othello, and that was really shown in the play, na talagang literally, alam mo yon, yung graphic. So, you just have, parang, I guess it's also the responsibility of every production to be able to provide those warnings
Yeah.
or those content warnings so that people know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
If you need
Yeah.
those diba? If you need those trigger warnings. So yun, ganon lang ngayon yung, and before, if before, hindi, wala, parang they say kasi sometimes, parang element of surprise and stuff like that.
Oo.
Parang you have to be parang
Yeah.
now,
Makes sense.
especially if you have the capacity to be responsible, you have to take that extra step. It's up to the person na if they want to come in not to know, wanting to know anything, diba? They don't have to look at
Yeah.
what you provide, diba? If you want to be surprised, they don't have to do that. But there will be people who will want to know, and you kind of have to be
Yeah.
responsible for them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just fair as well. na
Yeah.
Parang ngayon naman, I think, well, yung mga kakilala ko at least,
Yeah.
the more yung mga content warnings, mas na-excite pa sila.
Oh, diba? But like,
But
kunyari,
it's not a marketing stunt, but also,
yeah.
like, it's also, parang it gives them a certain level of expectations.
Yeah. And
Na-
it's, lalo na for those, like, okay, for example, we're, sensitive ito talaga, but like, for example, with Ang Huling El Bimbo, are you familiar?
Yeah.
Do you know, like, the medyo plot and,
Yes.
yeah. So, diba, Ang Huling El Bimbo, that's, am I allowed to say? Yeah,
Yes.
that's rape. I mean, if we're talking, diba, sexual assault talaga. And prior to the pandemic, hindi pa as pushed yung trigger warnings.
Yeah.
Yung, alam, yung need for trigger warnings. Parang, there were people voicing out and questioning, diba, na
Yeah,
parang,
nilabas yan,
bakit,
ganun.
nakakagulat and what. And parang, I think, when nung nag-rerun siya in 2023, they made sure that there were trigger warnings. Kumbaga, I think it's learning for a lot of people, not just practitioners, but also, diba, parang everybody, because nga times are evolving and times are changing, you have to be able to evolve as well. Na
Yeah.
parang there's just so much learning from the times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for kind of like shedding light on that as
Yeah.
well. For We Aren't Kids Anymore, are there any content warnings?
The content warnings for We Aren't Kids Anymore is discussions about self-harm and suicide, substance abuse, and there was one more. But yeah, if you follow at Barefoot Collab, nandun naman ang content
Okay.
warnings. But
Yeah.
nothing graphic, but it's also R13 if I'm not mistaken.
R13 siya.
Yeah, R13. So kids under 13 will not be allowed inside. Tapos 13 to 17, I think kailangan lang ng parent or guardian, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Final one of my final questions would be, out of all the plays or the roles that you played in, what makes, if you could summarize it into like one final point, what makes We Aren't Kids Anymore different from all your other shows?
I think it's the personal aspect of it. I mean, not saying na me, like if you go through what the character in We Aren't Kids Anymore goes through, I'm not saying I went through that exact same journey, because of course every journey is unique. But there's just something about, and siguro I should say also, now We Aren't Kids Anymore is a song cycle, which is a kind of musical. People aren't so familiar with what a song cycle is, but a song cycle is basically, it's all songs with like following a certain theme, and there are no book scenes. So meaning there's no lines na said lang. Meaning it's all songs.
Okay.
So that's what a song cycle is.
Galing. Okay.
Yeah. So but it's not a concert. So you kind of have to watch it
Parang
to...
Les Miserables. Parang...
Sang through ba ang Les Mis? Walang, o nga no. No, may lines.
May lines.
I mean, lines through song yun, di ba? So, basta you kind of
Okay,
have to
okay.
experience. I mean, I can't really spell out exactly.
We gotta try it out
I know
to
what the
fully
experience.
understand
Yeah,
it.
what the experience will be. Pero, sorry, what was your question again?
What makes this different?
Yeah, what makes it different? Number one, I don't think it's ever been done before because it's new material. So, parang it hasn't actually been mounted this way. Meaning, not like, let's say, what's a good example? Wicked. Let's say Wicked came here. Everybody knows Wicked, and everybody, let's say they saw the movie, they saw it in Broadway, they saw it in yan, and if it comes here, you'll know what's going to happen, even if it's different actors. For We Aren't Kids Anymore, there's nothing online. Na you'll see people singing it in bars. Alam mo yon, singing a song from We Aren't Kids Anymore, but you haven't seen it staged. So it's a 90-minute show that's never been seen before. And for me, there's something so magical about seeing something live for the first time. And wala kang basis of what the show is and what, 'di ba? Parang yun, parang for me that's how I fell in love with theater when I saw a musical for the first time and I had no idea what to expect. But I knew the story. It was, I think, one of my first shows ever was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Everybody knows the Narnia story. But seeing it and hearing, alam mo yun, for the first time, it kind of parang nahook talaga ako. And there's something about seeing something for the first time that's never been done before. Tapos it's something you'll completely relate to. Parang, I think that's what We Aren't Kids Anymore is. That's what's so interesting about We Aren't Kids Anymore.
Would you advise yung mga first time umattend ng theater to see the show? And why?
If you are an adult going through changes or transition phase, or even if you're an adult feeling a little bit alone, I would advise you to come see We Aren't Kids Anymore, because you'll realize that you're not the only one going through changes, or you're not the only one going through difficult times. And I guess there's also there's also value in unpacking. Diba? Yung parang, anybody, it is so relatable, which is, I think, why we decided to do this show in the first place. Because nga, one of those songs will tug at your heartstrings, or one of those songs will make you feel like, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
If I wanted to give an example, the first song that I learned from We Aren't Kids Anymore, or that hooked me, was one of the songs I sing. The title is On the Edge, and there's a line that goes, "At 29, I felt the highest. I finally saw the checks start coming in. And sure, he might be biased, but my dad was proud as hell and loud as hell about it." Alam mo yun, yung parang, it was those lines na parang, teka lang, ako yun ah. Yung parang, wait.
Ako ba nagsulat nito?
Oh, di ba? And sometimes it's just, it takes that.
Yeah.
Yun lang, yung linya lang na yun talaga, na parang ako, and dad ko stage dad eh. Yung parang everything I do, he will post online. Like he is, mas nagpo-post siya online because like everything, he will, so parang it was just so personal na parang, and you don't, and for other shows or other musicals I've encountered, you know it's a different story about a different character.
Yeah.
It's not, ako yan. Pero yun, it was just so specific. And it's just, huh? And then you hear everything, you hear all the other songs. And it's like, whoa, like what is happening? Yung may ganun siyang effect, at least for me.
Yeah.
And for for the actors also, and even the director. Ganun. So may ganun siyang effect. And I'm excited for people to see it because there will be a line or two that will super just be like, whoa! May ganun siyang feeling. Oo. Yun.
Well, I can feel your excitement and I'm super excited to see it as well. But please invite people who are listening or watching to the show.
Okay. To whoever is listening out there. To whoever is listening, and hi, please do come watch We Aren't Kids Anymore. We run from May 2 to 25 at the Power Max Center Spotlight Black Box Theater sa Circuit Makati. Please do follow at Barefoot Collab. Tickets are available on bit.ly/Waka 2025 tickets. And yeah, we're excited to see you then. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gab.
Thank you, Alec.
This was amazing.
Thank you.
And yes, guys, go check it out and magkita-kita tayo doon. Manood tayo sabay-sabay because if you're still listening, if you're watching, you know how a banger this this play is gonna be. But more importantly, thank you so much, Gab.
No,
I
thank
enjoyed
you.
this. Hope parang ang dami pa natin kailangan pag-usapan.
Oh, actually.
Parang nagsisimula
Surface
nag-warm
level
up-
pa lang to.
nag-warm up
Warm up
tayo.
pa
So
lang.
hopefully I can invite you again soon for your next projects and
Sure,
just
yes,
talk about
please.
theater. But I'm really rooting for the theater
Thank
industry
you.
to blossom. So
Yes.
I'm really gonna invite a lot of people to join us here and watch the show. So
Yes.
see you there. I'm
Thank
excited
you.
to see you in
Thank
your
you
role.
so
but
much.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being
very
here.
excited. There's a song, I mean, the songs are bops, pero nanonood as in may hugot siya medyo. So break a leg to all of us.
Yeah.
See you in May.
Awesome. In advance, congratulations.
Thank you,
na.
Alec. Thank you so much for having
All right.
us.
So again, guys, thank you so much. I know that you enjoyed this one. Go ahead and share this to as many people as you can. Tag me at Alec Cuenca, and of course tag Gab.
Yes, at Gab Pangilinan.
Yeah, on our socials, so we could also see your support and your love for the upcoming shows as well. We Aren't Kids Anymore, showing very, very soon. So abangan na abangan yan. See you there. And again, thank you guys so much. This is Small Talk, small conversations with huge impact. See you guys next episode. Peace.